What's up, everyone? Welcome to episode 53 Cuts and Upsets of the Sports Hour Plus with Miller and Watson. Happy early Thanksgiving to everybody that's watching. I know Kylan and I are very excited. It's super exciting to be pregnant on Thanksgiving, and I just now get to eat whatever I want, which is super exciting. But I'm super, super pumped for Thanksgiving tomorrow. We are I'm working a high school football game in the morning, and then we are heading down to Delaware um around like noonish tomorrow. So we should be there just in time for everything to be able to eat all the yummy food, which is super exciting. So I am pumped for all of that. I think it's going to be a really, really fun holiday. Kylan, what are your plans?
Oh man, I'm gonna be chilling. I've gotta watch the parades, right? Like here, Philadelphia, they have the oldest
Yeah.
going parade between Philly and New York. That is Parade Central. So got the Philly local parade. Gonna have that on one channel in the morning. Then probably check out the Macy's or check the rewatch of the Macy's, depending on how I feel about it. And obviously watch some football, play some video games, eat some great food made by my world class mother, of course. And I got the best. I say all the time, man, I got the best job in every Thanksgiving because I get to be the food taster, and Morgan, that's the best job. Ain't no work. It's just, hey, come on down and taste this. I love that, man. I love that. I love that. And Thanksgiving is kind of the chiller holiday that we do. We basically have like a family reunion on Christmas, so it's a little bit more intensive as far as the work that we do to make it all happen. So at least on my dad's side, because my mom is from the South Arkansas, so if they're coming down here, it must be a big thing. But that I don't think that's happening this year. So yeah, so it'll be it's gonna be great. It's gonna be a great time. Like you said, football got the first Black Friday game in a long time, which we'll get into. So it's gonna be exciting. Probably gonna
It is exciting.
yeah, probably gonna have to hit the my local track on Friday, Black Friday. I try to get there and do some workouts at least 4 to 5 times a week. I'm gonna fall short of that goal this week, but yeah, busy time in media and in sports. But excited for Thanksgiving, excited to chill. Like I told y'all last week, got those long form pieces for the Tribune done. Just hit a piece for those of you that don't know on the Tribune about spoken word. So that finally hit after some delay. So I'm excited about that. And just like I said, just looking for some time to rest and be with the fam, man. You know.
Yes, I very much understand that. It's nice to sometimes just not think about work and just be able to watch sports. At least for me, it's really fun sometimes just to watch sports as a fan. It doesn't get to happen all that often. So it's nice to be around family to watch as family and friends, together that I don't normally get to see. So um,
Yeah.
really fun.
No, I totally understand. I can't wait to pwn some fools in Madden, and or watch my brother pwn some fools in Fortnite. So there's gonna be a lot of gaming here. So it's gonna be a fun time. And I'm sure you're gonna have fun. Just chilling in Delaware. So
Yeah,
uh, you know, I
it'll
hope.
be excited. We are super excited.
Yeah. But don't
All
forget to
right.
follow us.
So, yeah, don't forget to give us a follow. Maybe you'll see some shout outs. Maybe we'll have some stuff about our Thanksgivings and things like that. But for sure, give us a follow. And let's get into it. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it. So Juju Watkins, it's been a while since we talked about some women's college basketball. We'll get to that. But Juju Watkins, she started this week off with a bang this Thanksgiving week. She signs an NIL deal with State Farm. I believe this is State Farm's, at least if it's not the first, like one of like 4 or 5 that they've been doing. I know they did one with Caitlin Clark, obviously. I think everybody remembers that. Don't know if they have a page one. I'm sure you're going to tell me probably. But I'm of the mindset that I'm excited. Get your money, girl. Like you're in a USC. You got Michael B. Jordan, or as Morgan and the rest of you women call him, Michael Bay Jordan, showing up to your games. Like it's like that USC game this weekend looked like a Lakers game with all the celebrities that were there to see Juju
I
perform.
know. I know.
Juju Juju do it. I think was that a Peacock game, right? That was a Peacock game.
It
You
may have
probably
been.
didn't look
Yeah,
at.
yeah,
Yeah, so that was a Peacock game. So there's a lot going on. Juju's like the new star now, obviously with Paige leaving. I think it's basically Juju and Ozzy and some other people going around too. So, it's exciting for her. Cash in. She's there for another couple, at least this year and next year. So might as well cash in. So I have no problem with that. Get your money, girl. Hopefully they're
yeah.
paying
Me
you
either. I
very,
love
very
it.
well. Morgan?
No, I love it. I think it's awesome. She's obviously so much fun to watch. And it's great. It's always exciting. Again, we say this all the time when these athletes are able to go out there and make their money. And Juju's gonna do great things in the WNBA, but it's great that she's able to get that NIL. And I mean, can we talk about State Farm? State Farm just goes out there and gets these athletes, man. They sign everybody. They have commercials, it seems like, with every single person on the face of the planet. So, it's super exciting and I'm happy for her. And hopefully she gets to do some fun commercials with some cool people.
They're good for State Farm, maximizing them dollars, like you said, and making sure that they're relevant, whether you young or old, right? Good. Speaking of relevant, Daniel Jones. I mean, going from being the highest paid practice squad safety and quarterback in New York, we know Aaron Rodgers probably jealous, to now being the guy who's getting paid. I think he might be one of the few people getting paid by both a team in New York and one in Minnesota at the same dang time. Oh, Lord Jesus. Dan, I'm going to let you go because you know Danny Dimes better than I do. What do you think about this? Him being one of the highest paid backup quarterbacks ever if something happens to Sam
I think
Darnold.
that Daniel Jones.
Nobody fact check me on that either.
Honestly, I think that Daniel Jones is a really, really, really good backup. He's a great backup, I think, specifically for Sam Darnold. I think that what's really funny is that a lot of Giants fans are saying maybe we should trade at the end of the season for Sam Darnold and wait a year for a quarterback and get a quarterback like maybe Arch Manning in the draft in 2026. But I think it's funny that he ended up there. He said he wanted to end up with a contender. Minnesota's for sure a contender. And I'm happy for him. I thought that we kind of talked about it a little bit last week, but the way that he went out in originally it looked like the way he was going to go out in New York was bad and embarrassing for the New York Giants. I tweeted about it. I was very unhappy, but I really, really respect the Mara family and Coach Dayball and the GM for letting them, for when Daniel came in and asked to be released, that they said yes, because that is the best thing to do to him. He has been nothing but a stand-up character in New York for the entire time he's been there. He has been a great teammate from the looks of it. You heard all the sound coming out of the locker room. These players loved him. They loved playing for him. They loved him as their quarterback. And you saw them after the game this week. They were like, it's not a quarterback problem. It's not a quarterback problem. They kept saying that. And so I think that treating him originally, and I know it's normal for backup QBs to be scout team safety. Yeah. But that's like the fourth string. He should not have been demoted to the fourth string. Drew Lock should have started. I understand that there's, tanking, whatever. I don't really care. But Drew Lock should have started. Tommy Cutlett should never have been in the rotation. It's just, there was stuff that happened that week that was just a mess all around. Like, do I think they would have won with Drew Lock? No. But it would have probably been a lot less embarrassing. So in the grand scheme of things, I'm happy for Daniel Jones. I hope that he, I think, again, he'll be a great backup. And I think that somebody probably will pick him up next year as a really, really, really solid number two that if your quarterback goes out, you can feel confident about, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's the future. Like I said, I think he's the future starter of the New York Jets. I think he'll be back to give y'all hell very, very soon. I think I think he is the future starting quarterback of the New York Jets or the future starting quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers. I think after dealing with what he dealt with y'all for, what was it, 4 or 5 years, I don't know if he wants to go back to a bad situation. And like you said, I can't blame him. I mean, you know about the situation more intimately as a Giants fan than I do. But I always thought that as a Duke quarterback, he was thrown into a situation that was beyond him anyway. And I don't mean this as a disrespect to him, just like when you're thrown into a situation where you're on a team where other than Eli Manning didn't really have very many talented quarterbacks anyway. But when you're thrown into a team that is just coming off of, you know, Eli retiring, the Jeremy Shockey leaves and retires. Like, Tiki isn't there anymore. He left for broadcasting. Michael Strahan's gone. Like, when you go from that type of situation to a situation where you are a Duke quarterback. Again, no knock on Duke and their football program. Very good program, as we've seen over the years. But when you're thrown into that, you've got to be that leader of men. And I don't know necessarily if Daniel, clearly he is, right? Maybe he's more of a quiet leader than a loud leader. That's more what he seems to me. But, I'm of the mindset that his talent just didn't match, the thing that the Giants needed. The Giants needed somebody whose talent can, like, bring them up. And that's not really that type of, Daniel Jones, not really that type of quarterback. He is, every quarterback's a system quarterback, but some QBs just have that talent that lets them go beyond that. That is your Patrick Mahomes is, your Josh Allen, your Jalen Hurts is, your Lamar Jacksons. That's not Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones is a QB that's very good at what he does. He can deceive you with his legs. He is really good, but he's not that quarterback that can take you to a Super Bowl. He is a quarterback that can take you somewhere if everything else is good around him. That's why I'm happy he's in Minnesota, to learn from the ultimate system quarterback with okay talent in Sam Darnold. And I definitely think that that'll be good for him to learn how to win again. I mean, you kind of seen what it is when these Giants players go from, losing to winning. You're seeing it with Saquon, who we'll get to in a minute. You're seeing it with, with Malik Neighbors trashing the locker room over the fact that Daniel Jones is gone. He's got to look at these losers. No offense to Tommy DeVito, my fellow Syracuse alum, but he's got to look at these losing quarterbacks and be like, "Dang, I'm really stuck in a bad situation." So I'm of the mindset that this is good for Sam Darnold. Better look for the Giants this week. They still maintain the fact that they're might end up with a top 3 pick to win the Shedeur Sanders sweepstakes. So, it's good for them. But I think, like, the next time they do this, they need to find a quarterback with talent, like God tier talent. You need to find a Russell Wilson. You need to find a Jalen Hurts. You need to find a Lamar Jackson. You need to find that next level quarterback, that foundational quarterback. And if that's not in the draft, if you don't think that's Shedeur Sanders, you don't think that's Dylan Gabriel, then don't draft a quarterback. Don't do it. Just do something else.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where I am with it. I don't know.
I completely agree.
Yeah,
completely agree.
Yeah,
and I think that's kind of that's all there is. We'll see, you want to say hopefully he doesn't have to play it all this year because you want Sam Darnold to be able to finish the season and you don't root for injuries. But I do think that they're in a good spot if they do need to play him. I think that the Vikings have a lot more options than the Giants have. Their offensive line is a little bit better. And I think that he will be in a better spot if he has to go in for them.
Yeah, so where do you think he'll end up? I mean, as a free agent this year,
I don't know. I think it'll be really interesting to see what Dallas does. I think it'll be really interesting to see if, I'm assuming that they will. I would, like I said, assume that they will. The 49ers sign Brock. I would assume that that's not something that, they are leaving, I guess. But, I don't know. Those would be the two that I'd be kind of interested. There's, what are the Jags going to do? What are the Panthers going to do? There's some teams that have some decisions to make in the postseason. What are the Jets going to do? Is Aaron Rodgers going to come back? Those are all the big questions that I have.
Yeah, for me, I think that he either ends up in San Fran as a Jet or as a Steeler. I think that's where he's at. I think that's where they're at with this. So I'm of the mindset that if something happens with Russell Wilson, if something happens with Russell Wilson, then he'll end up in Pittsburgh maybe. I know the Steelers fans are like, no, but you never know. So I'm of the mind that's where I'm at with it. But I think either San Fran or as a Jet. I mean, if he wants to win, he'll go to San Fran or Pittsburgh or something happens with Russell Wilson. I
I
doubt that.
agree.
Yeah. Now, just to be clear here, because there are a lot of Steelers fans that watch this show. Morgan knows this. I am not saying that Russell Wilson will be gone after this year. I just want y'all to know that because I don't want to see y'all later this week and y'all telling me, "Oh no, what do you know?" I don't know anything. I think he's happy as a Steeler, but you never. All I'm saying is it's only a 1 year deal, and you never know. So that's all I'm saying. So moving right along to the Eagles. Uh, Morgan, you want to start here real quick?
Um, yeah, I mean, I think we both kind of said it, but the Eagles have really, really, really found their rhythm. And that's good for them, scary for the other teams. They seem to have found their rhythm kind of right when um the Commanders seem to have lost it, which seeming to be is their only other contender for the NFC East. I don't think at this point there's going to be an issue. I actually, funny story, Kylan, you'll love this. So one of my really good friends from college she's from Philly and she's pregnant. She's due about 2 weeks before I am. And so she's trying to figure out a day to do her baby shower. And she texted me and she was like, okay, are the Eagle like she's like, I need a professional opinion. Are the Eagles going to be playing in the wild card round of the playoffs? And I started laughing and I was like, you know what? Like, I don't think it's looking like it. I think you're probably safe to have your baby shower the weekend of the division or a weekend of the wild card round. I wouldn't have the divisional round because I believe they'll probably be playing in that. But I think you'll be safe to do it that Saturday or Sunday of the wild card weekend. And I think that after this
I
game,
can
it's
see.
pretty sure.
Yeah, I can see it. I think, we both said that this would probably end up in a blowout. I know Morgan had a little bit close, but like I said, man, the Eagles have that rhythm now. That bye week really came at a good time. I know a lot of people, including myself, I've said on the show a lot that bye week was either going to bring the team together or destroy it. I am glad that it brought the team together. I'm glad that the schedule worked out. That they don't have to travel anywhere basically besides down I-95 these last few weeks of the season, which is crazy that we're here already. Like I said, their hardest game is coming up against the Ravens. But even against the Chargers, I mean, I think the Ravens are looking a lot more beatable than we all thought a few weeks ago. But I'm of the mindset that this was a great game, a good test for Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. Got to check on Darius Slay and if he can recover from that concussion. But I think this was a really good game for the Eagles. I think that the question has always been like, with Nick Sirianni. I've always said that Nick Sirianni got to a Super Bowl before a lot of these people. He's fine. He just needs to trust his. I've said on this show before. I'm probably one of the few people that have been saying it all season. Like the sooner he learns to trust Kellen and Vic, the better it'll be. And he learned how to do that. He's taking his foot off. We're seeing less stupid decisions that we know probably came from him. I am of the mindset. It seems like Jake Elliott finally got fixed, at least for 1 week. As we saw this whole week, kicking is an issue for a lot of teams. So, you ain't gotta look far. The Ravens, the guy kicker is struggling in Baltimore. So I mean, Eagles fans should count their blessings. But I'm of the mindset that this is good job for the Eagles. The Rams are coming. The Eagles, the only problem now is the fact that they lost Brandon Graham to a torn triceps, a Pyrrhic victory there. But I still think they have enough. Howie Rose been drafted well this year, and they have the other draft, so it's a lot on Nolan Smith now. But I think for the Eagles, like Morgan said, they're getting their talent is finally winning out. They came together as a team. There's another team across the street that needs to do that now. I have said this. A lot of people disagree with me. I know Morgan agrees with me. You'd rather have controversy early, and my dad says this a lot. Like as far as he's a former high school football player, and just I think that this happens in basketball too. Just to relate this back to the Sixers, you'd rather have your controversy early than later. right? You'd rather go through that adversity now because the adversity now will bring you together for later, right? Now, the difference obviously is 17 game season, 82 game season, a little bit more room in basketball than in football. But, I'm of the mindset that, me personally, and I think this is evident by what happened with the Eagles. They went through their controversy early. People were saying, is it going to implode? Is Jalen Hurts really the guy? And then that bye week, they shut the noise down, and look at them now. Hottest team in football, on the hottest win streak in football, 7-game winning streak. And I honestly will get to this game in a minute, but I'm going to tell y'all, I think Vegas has it completely wrong. I think this game coming up is going to be a shootout, very reminiscent of the Bengals Eagles, just because, I've said the biggest concern with the Ravens, kind of like with the Rams, is their defense. They don't really have a good defense, middle linebacker wise. Now Roquan Smith is down. But as far as, like I said, I'm going to save that for later because we're getting there. But as far as for the Rams are coming. Their defensive line look good. This was, for all intents and purposes, a drag them out fight. Like the Rams defenders were knocking the Eagles offensive linemen down, but then the bigger bully won. Philadelphia was able to out-bully the Rams. That's the game. The Eagles offensive line and defensive line just bullies you because it's younger, it's stronger. It's one of those that's built to last. And we talked about this game. Didn't even get to speaking of former Giants. Saquon Barkley. Is Saquon? Saquon Barkley had 2 touchdowns. He broke Shady McCoy's record with a 302 scrimmaging. The screen game has finally made a reappearance. Where has that been all year? Morgan, I know she's an avid reader of Watson Sports Stage, but I feel like every article, correct, Morgan, I'm talking about, hey, Nick, use the screen game. And he finally listened to me, So, Saquon Barkley, I think it's the MVP. I think that the Eagles have 2 MVP candidates. They have 2 MVP candidates, a defensive rookie, 2 defensive rookies of the year. And it's all on one team. But I feel like Saquon Barkley right now is a strong leader for MVP. I think that, he's showing the Giants and everybody else. This season might be the season of the year of the running back because, look at what Josh Jacobs is doing for Green Bay. Won them that game against San Fran. We'll get to that game. Look at what Derrick Henry's doing with the resurgence of the running back there. Look at what, I said in my article about my write-up about this game, the Eagles have been missing that heavy hitter. Like, for a while, it was quarterback. It was Donovan McNabb. It was Carson Wentz and Nick Foles. But they finally have that hitter, that guy that he can break a game wide open. And that is Saquon Barkley. A.J. Brown obviously can bust a game wide open, obviously, but he gets triple teamed, especially when Devontae Smith isn't there. But Saquon Barkley, it doesn't matter. As long as that offensive line is healthy, and I know that Morgan doesn't want to hear this, but as long as that offensive line is healthy, for the length of that contract, I think Saquon's going to get a Super Bowl ring. I don't know if it'll be this year, but I think it's going to be a Super Bowl ring of Saquon Barkley's future as long as he's running behind that offensive line.
Yeah. Morgan? I think a lot of people are saying he's the odds on, obviously he's the odds on likely. I still think it's kind of like, we've talked about this between him and Josh Allen right now. It just depends on what happens. And the difference is I think that Josh Allen is far more important to their team than Saquon is. The Eagles have a ton of kind of heroes on that team. They have a ton of playmakers where the Bills are kind of doing it pretty much still with just Josh Allen. I know that he does have some other people now, but a lot of them have been hurt and he hasn't really gotten to play. He's gotten to play like one full game with like all of his starters or something. So, I don't really know what else to say when it comes to that, but he has been phenomenal this year. I definitely miss him on the Giants. Like, I wish we still had him. But I'm happy that he found his home. I think that it shows how bad the offensive line is for the Giants, that he's older than he ever has been and he's playing better than he ever has been.
Yeah. I think right now it is between Saquon, Josh, Lamar. I think Lamar's in there as well, just because you can't count Lamar out. And I think Derrick Henry as well is making a case. And I think if Josh Jacobs plays like he did last week, then he'll be making a case too. But I'm gonna let you start here, Morgan. Before we get into more of these games, is the NFC coming down to a race between the Eagles and Lions for the 1 seed? And then to add to this question, who do you trust more that actually happens? And that's our NFC championship game in 2025. But that's just an add-on. I'll let you start here. Do you think that's the case, or do you think it'll be another team?
No, I think that's the case. I don't think that there's anything else to kind of do in that situation. I think it's going to be Eagles and Lions. I mean, obviously the Vikings are in there. They're somebody to think about. I mean, definitely nobody else. I don't think in the NFC East could possibly come out of it. Maybe, I don't know, maybe the Commanders figure it out, but I highly doubt it. I mean, I think that this is the trajectory that we're seeing. The 49ers, obviously, without Brock Purdy, I just don't see it happening. They're just so banged up. I don't see it. So I really do think that this is going to be the race between these two teams. The NFC it's an interesting lineup this year where there's a lot of really, really bad teams and a lot of really good teams. So I can't really say much more than that, but yeah, that's kind of going to be the main thing. I really think it's going to be an Eagles and Lions. Sorry, I don't really have much more to say on that because I generally believe that it is. And I'm trying to find our topic list because I don't know what's coming up next. Because my computer, so we can talk a little bit while Kylan's away about my computer issues. I woke up yesterday and my computer just straight up did not work, did not turn on. So we were supposed to do the podcast like 3 times this week, and I got a stomach bug, and then my computer wouldn't turn on. Kylan, you can see, is obviously not in his normal spot. He's having issues with his computer. So there he is. It's been a week of technological difficulties. So I was saying I ran out of things to talk about straight up. I was like, I pretty much was like, it's going to be these two teams. I don't know of anybody else. I went through and was like, can't be this team, can't be that team. And then I couldn't find the topic list, so I had no idea where we were going to. So I just started talking about our computer issues.
Yeah. So, first last week was my router. Obviously, I'm good. We're playing, and I'm still in the same room, but just a different location. We're playing around with it, but it's better this week. We're not Jake Paul and Mike Tyson fighting out here. So it's better this week. So hopefully it just get better, and I'll be back at the desk like I always am. But I think that this is the matchup. I think the Lions. Obviously, the Lions have a harder schedule than the Eagles towards the end. So I think the Lions can be had. They'll probably lose like one more game. Now for the Eagles, they can't lose more than like one more game. Now I had it all the time before this game started that they would probably lose to the Ravens. But the way the Ravens have been looking the last few weeks, I think I'm back on the train that the Eagles might get 13 or 14 wins. I told Morgan before, she laughed at me, that I think the Eagles were going to be a 13 or 14 win team this year. I'm of the mindset that it is coming down to the Eagles and Lions. And then once you get there, you're just talking about what do you like better. I think the Eagles have a coaching advantage. I think they have a talent advantage. I am not one of those dummies that believes Jared Goff is actually better than Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is better. The Eagles have the better wide receiver duo. I think the argument that you can make is obviously that, the Lions have, whereas it's just Saquon Barkley and sometimes Kenneth Gainwell. The Lions have a better RB duo with Jameer and Montgomery, although I think Montgomery is injured. This obviously isn't going to happen anytime soon. The Eagles and Lions just played each other last year or 2 years ago, I think. This isn't going to happen anytime during the regular season. So, but I think these two teams are on a collision course. And I'm right there with Morgan that it's definitely Eagles and Lions. And then after that, it's just about who do you think has the better coach, who do you think has the better quarterback, who's the better offense, who's the better defense. And I mean, we can go through that breakdown in January. I think it's funny because I always have a retreat that winds up on wild card weekend. So I'm praying and hoping that the Eagles get that bye week. I'm mad that it doesn't include the 2 seed, and I think the NFL should relook at that next year. That it should be the top 2 seeds that get a bye, because otherwise the season really doesn't matter if you're not a 1 seed. So I think they need to go back to the old version and just add another wild card team and let them play each other. Do the basketball or the baseball model.
Yeah.
But moving, yeah. Don't you think so? Don't you think it's stupid that the 2 seed, like literally, like last time when you and I were growing up,
Yeah.
it was the one you got to buy. But now it kind of sucks if you're the second best team in either conference because you don't get that buy.
Yeah.
That 2 seed basically has to take the last 2 weeks off. Like really, like once you done secured your spot, if you're a 2 seed, like if you're the Eagles or the Lions, right? Or the Chiefs or the Ravens, right? Whichever team loses and has to get the 2 seed, right? You're basically just saying, like, all right, I'm going to sit Josh Allen, I'm going to sit Lamar Jackson, I'm going to sit Patrick Mahomes for the last 2 weeks of the season. I'm just going to let it rock because I'm built into the 2 seed, right? Whereas if you had a bye week, right, you can see the stars. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
I know Morgan. I think she likes the fact that the 2 seed has to work. I don't. I think that if you're a top 2 seed, I honestly I could make an argument that the 3 seed deserves to get off too, because I feel like if you're a top 3 team in your conference, you need to be rewarded for having a really good record. And I
That's
don't
true.
think it's fair. And I don't think it's fair that like only the 1 seed, because I think it's dumb. And they talk about player safety, but I think it's dumb that like the 2 seed has to go through a gauntlet, and then we wound up getting blowouts in the AFC or the NFC championship game because you got a worn out 2 seed and a well rested 1 seed, or
Yeah.
whatever it
That's
is.
fair.
You get a well rested 1 seed and a beat up wild card, or whoever winds up making it to the championship game. Obviously, a lot of people like to lie in our industry and be like, "Oh, football has a lot of parity." Let's be real, man. Like a wild card team hasn't made it to the Super Bowl since the Giants did it in what 2012, Morgan. So like, let's just be real. It's gotten real chalky since then.
Yeah.
And as far as the playoffs, but moving right along for my playoff rant, the Green Bay Packers destroyed the San Francisco 49ers. I watch this game, but as it got clear, I think for the first quarter that the Packers were just going to curb stop the Niners. I stopped watching because, like, I kind of told y'all this before. Like, if something happened to Brock Purdy, like John Lynch and them suck at building teams, and I think it's become very, very clear now. And I think that as much as the 49ers, I heard Deebo Samuel this week that Shanahan shouldn't be on. So clearly, even though I had no sourcing on it, like clearly somebody is planning on. Clearly Shanahan is on that hot seat. I know Morgan disagrees, but I don't think Deebo Samuel will be talking
No,
about it.
no, I don't see. I don't necessarily know that Shanahan's on the hot seat. I just think that they didn't do enough, and maybe it is Shanahan. I don't know, but they didn't do enough in the offseason to rebuild. There's just a lot of old guys. Debo's definitely just not Debo. I don't know. With Brock hurt, Debo's not really playing like Debo. Christian McCaffrey looks great, but is still recovering and doesn't look like the Christian McCaffrey of lore, and I think that Kyle Shanahan's kind of at a loss right now, where he doesn't really know where to turn, but I think that should have meant that they made more moves in the offseason.
Well, this is why I said I'm not. I was the first one, like I said about Pete Carroll. Like at this point for the Niners, if this season ends in disappointment, which it looks like it was, Morgan can give me, and all y'all who watch this podcast will give me my credit, because I've been saying this since 2 summers ago, that if the 49ers can't get a Super Bowl by this year, by 2025, then John Lynch or Kyle Shanahan, one or both, got to go. Because, if you're telling it's Kyle Shanahan, like the Kyle Shanahan got to go. And if Kyle Shanahan got to go, then the person that hired Kyle Shanahan got to go too. Like, it's one or the other to me. Like, and I agree with Morgan, if you're saying what I'm saying, which is, that, like I started this by saying John Lynch cannot build a team. I know there's a lot of people in our industry that blow John Lynch. He is not that guy. Like, he is not him when it comes to building a team. And I think it's shown. It showed last year when I was one of the few people, everybody was saying the 49ers was a juggernaut. I was the one person in our industry saying, yeah, they're not good. They're going to fold. They're the ultimate front runners. They will fold when they actually get into a game. They shouldn't have been there. It was the Lions Super Bowl. It should have been the Lions, but the Lions got Dan Campbell. So, like, I just think that I've been saying for a while, and I know it's come off as sour grapes to some of y'all, but any of y'all that have actually listened to me will know that I've been saying the 49ers aren't that team for a while. So, I'm of the mindset that, they'll pay Brock Purdy more than likely because, John Lynch won't want to admit a mistake. But I think that if you are Jed York, you need to fire John Lynch. Kyle Shanahan, you can give him a mulligan for this one because, like I said, they're going through what the Eagles went through last year. Like, you come from a Super Bowl, the season is short, you play in the preseason, you want to keep the team together even when you shouldn't. You don't have draft picks because you're a good team. Like, so you and that's why I say if you don't have a Howie Roseman on your roster, then you need to you need to fire that guy because John Lynch ain't that guy. I've been saying it for a while.
I think that's really fair. Yeah.
John Lynch is not that guy, and it's time to go. It's time for him to go, or it's time for Kyle Shanahan to go. And Jed York has to make that decision because you can't continue to rely on Trent Williams, what's left of Brandon Ayuk, what's left of Christian McCaffrey's Achilles, and think that that's going to win you games when you're looking at the Eagles get younger. You're looking at the Lions who are already young besides Jared Goff. Like, what are you going to do? Like, before this season started, we thought it would be the Eagles and the 49ers vying for who's going to get that rematch against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, right? Now it's clear that the only constant is going to be the Eagles and probably the Lions if they don't get screwed out, if they don't either screw themselves or they don't get screwed out of a spot, right? Like, I think it's pretty clear that the 49ers have a problem and it's either there. And for Jed York, it's either your coach or it's your GM that puts the roster together. Because I don't know if Morgan has an answer to this. I don't know how much Kyle Shanahan does the roster decisions. I believe it's all John Lynch. If it's all John Lynch,
I would assume it was mainly John Lynch. I don't know.
Yeah, so if it's mainly John Lynch, then he got to go because it's not Kyle Shanahan signing Trent Williams and Deebo Samuels and Brandon Ayuk to these large contracts. It's John Lynch. He got to go. So, and I think, like, what a time for the 49ers, right? You got a chance to unscrew your team. And, for everything that I've said about Daniel Jones, again, you have a chance. Depending on what happens, you have a chance. Maybe Trevor Lawrence is available. You have a chance to do what Morgan will remember. I said you should have done 2 summers ago when Lamar was available. You have a chance to actually get a franchise quarterback, instead of like trying to make Brock Purdy something that he's not. But to this game, the Packers are doing what they're supposed to do, which is beat these teams because they have to keep pace in the loaded NFC North, and it was a revenge game for them. And
looks like Kylan froze out there, but yeah, I think that Josh Jacobs one also looked awesome for Green Bay. I think that it's hard when things seem to be clicking for one team and falling apart for the other. And this was kind of just the epitome of that, where the Packers have kind of found their stride slightly and the 49ers are slowly slipping.
Yep, I agree. So moving right along to the age-old question that I always ask, is it time for the 49ers to shut it down and just accept their fate, or should they keep fighting? Morgan?
I think that that's really hard. I think that it depends. I don't know how serious Brock Purdy's injury is. I think that if Brock Purdy's injury is severe enough that it keeps him out for quite a while, then unfortunately, yeah, I think that you aren't going to get much, honestly, from this team. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I think that they're a good team. I just think that they have injuries, and injuries are so hard when it comes to football teams, especially when you have a team that's I would say not as deep as the 49ers have. Yeah, they have a great coach, they have a great defensive coordinator, but if you don't have the players that can execute that, it's tough.
I mean, I keep saying John Lynch is not him. I don't know how Jed York should just listen to this podcast and hire me. I'm of the mindset that it's time to. Let me just be clear with this question. I'm just saying, is it time for them to shut it down? As far as what I mean by that is, just accept their fate. Brock Purdy, he deserves to play because he's playing for more money, so obviously he can play. But I just think that they just need to accept their fate. Just sit their older players down, especially the ones that they know they've either are committed to or are not committed to. Let them play it out. But as far as Brock Purdy, he's got to play. But I just think it's time for them to shut it down, just because it's time to accept your fate. Like at least you'll be able to get a top pick for once. Like again, the 49ers just need to accept that they're not going to do anything. Like the Cardinals are better than them in the NFC West. The Seahawks are falling all over themselves, still winning games, and they're better than them. The Rams just lost to the Eagles, and they're ahead of them. Like I think it's time to look at the standings and just accept your fate. Like let Brock Purdy play if he's healthy enough to play. Let him earn his money for either the 49ers or for another team. But I just think it's time to shut it down and accept their fate. Like they're not going anywhere this year. They're not healthy, as Morgan and I have so eloquently put it. They're not deep enough. Like, you're 4-6, and your bye week is upcoming. But I mean, it's hard, man. Like sit Kittle down. It's just time. It's time to do what the Giants and everybody else are doing. It's time to start being competitive but tanking for these picks. Because it's just time. It's time for the 49ers. It's time to just accept your fate. Like the standings are against you, time is against you. It's time to accept your fate.
Yeah, I think that's there's really nothing else to say when it comes to that. I agree with you.
Yeah, thank you. So moving right along, the Dallas Cowboys beat. I mean, I think this was a surprise. I thought the Cowboys were dead. I know you thought the Cowboys were dead. I think a lot of people outside of Dallas thought the Cowboys were dead, but apparently the Commanders are more fraudulent than I thought they were, because I don't know what happened to your hometown team here, Morgan. Like I'll switch it between this game, that game, and the Panthers Chiefs, and obviously NFC East matchups. The division beats up on each other, but I think everybody thought that after that disappointment on Thursday night that the Commanders would smoke the Cowboys. And it turns out Cooper Magic still had magic in that old helmet they found, because when he put it on his head, the Cowboys began to dance around. Shouts out to Frosty Snowman, and so I know some of y'all are like, why would you do that, Kylan? I'm not trying to think about Christmas till after tomorrow, but there you go. So the Cowboys, they got DaRon Bland back. Micah Parsons seems healthier by the day, and they just blew it up. I mean, special teams clearly is a hard thing to plan for, because, I mean, the Commanders should have won that game. I don't know what the Cowboys were thinking with that pass to Terry McLaurin. I appreciate it because Terry McLaurin was on my fantasy team, so he was doing nothing for me up until that point. I appreciate that, Cowboys. But, this was a game that the Commanders should have won, but their kicker, bad snap, a lot of their special teams just did them in, and a lot of stupid mistakes did them in. I think the Commanders really need a bye week. I think after this bye week, they'll come back and be the dominant team that I think they are. But good for the Cowboys. Good and bad for the Cowboys, because they want to get that big highlight pick to get Shador or Travis Hunter. So good and bad for the Cowboys. But I think this was really good Cowboys and really tired Commanders. I think that's what this game comes down to. And obviously, like I said, special teams is way more important than we thought. Morgan?
I completely agree. I think that, you know, as good as the Commanders have been, and I said this last week, I said this, you know, that when we asked if they were frauds, and I said, no, they're not frauds because they never were expected to do anything. And, you know, I believe that. I believe that they've had an extraordinary season for what they were and what they are. And I don't think that we can judge them for that. I think the Dallas Cowboys have been the laughing stock for a few weeks now, and I think they were feeling really embarrassed. I think it's obviously a huge rivalry game for the both of them. So I think that all of those things combining together, you know, created not good things for the Commanders and good things for the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think. Sorry, I was in the midst of something.
No, you're good.
I agree with you. I think that this was, like I said, this was tired Commanders. Like I said, I think that they will still make the playoffs. I think that which is good for this was good for the Commanders. They haven't made the playoffs, I think, since 2013 when RG3 was still there. So this is a good season for the Commanders. But I mean, this was a really bad loss. But I think this is the last bad loss I think that they will have. So if you're a Commanders fan, you might think, "Oh, Collins being overly positive," but
No, I don't think so
the,
either. I think that this was accumulation of a ton of things, and I think that this was an anomaly for their season, honestly.
yeah, yep. I still think Jaden Daniels is him. I think, like I said, they're a couple playmakers away from actually being a Super Bowl contender. But I think they made the playoffs, so it is what it is. So
Yeah.
moving right along to another team that struggled. I mean, the can't stop me if you heard this before. The Kansas City Chiefs beat the Panthers, but I think they played around with their food a little too much. I don't know, man. I think I've said this before. I think that I asked this question last week to Morgan. Would Patrick Mahomes' turnoveritis come back to bite the Panthers? And in this case, it wasn't his turnoveritis that almost bit the Chiefs. It was the fact that their defense could not stop a resurgent Bryce. Maybe that benching really did help Bryce. I think he's a product of a bad situation, a bad owner. David Tepper sucks. A bad owner, just a bad situation, and I think that he needs to not be there anymore. But he looks good. And the Chiefs defense is apparently a lot more weak than I thought, or maybe the Panthers O line is just that good. I look forward to what Morgan has to say on this. But as far as I'm concerned, I just think the Chiefs these last 2 weeks are looking beatable. I don't know what's wrong with Chris and them as far as the defensive line. I think Spags is playing too aggressively. I think the offense doesn't have that oomph anymore. Now, having said that, as I told Morgan off air, Isaiah Pacheco is coming back, so that offense will get its punch again very soon. I think that there is just something it seems missing with the Chiefs this year. I can't really put my finger on what it is, but I think that the Chiefs. I don't know. This is the one year where I am not sure, and I said it was guaranteed when you have got the guy QB on your side, but I'm wavering in my pick. I said it would be Chiefs Eagles, but I think I'm wavering on my pick on if the Chiefs will be there because I think that with the way they're looking, that the Ravens, the Bills, or the Field can get them this year. And I Morgan knows I've said that Patrick Mahomes is the ultimate cheat code. He is God, and when you're boxing against God, you need everything to go right. And I just feel like there's just something wrong with the Chiefs this year. I don't really know what it is, but I think this Panthers game is just fits the pattern. Like they played around with their food, they almost got, and the Chiefs were able to just rely on their talent. But I don't know if they can do that against this AFC with a Bills team that's looking motivated to save their coach's job and again, don't know anything when it comes to that either. But I just think that they're motivated. I think that a lot of people in our industry think this is, what's his name's last year there if it doesn't work out. But I'm of the mindset that the Ravens and the Bills could probably get them this year. Morgan.
Yeah, this game was weird. It was weird. It was one that like I wasn't watching very closely just because I was like, oh, Chiefs got this is the Panthers, blah blah blah. And then all of a sudden it was like, what is happening? And you see this happen all the time in sports where the team that is expected to win, blow the other team out, overlooks that the other team is a D1 program, is a professional team. And they have to remember that they want to beat them so bad. That's the number one team. That's the team to beat. So they're going to bring their absolute A game. And if the team that they're playing now with this would being the Chiefs aren't bringing that same kind of power to the game, it's hard and the game can get much closer and then you have no momentum. The other team has momentum because they're playing. It's a bad situation. So it's that thing where you need to go into every game with the mindset of I'm going to beat this team. And if you don't, or no, not that you're going to beat this team, that you're going to fight hard to beat this team. That no win is easy. No win in the NFL is easy. Come on. You know, you saw the way that Patrick Mahomes and Kelsey walked off the field. They looked rattled and stunned. And I think they knew they didn't prepare as well as they should have for this game.
I agree. I think that the Chiefs. I left this game more concerned about the Chiefs' defense than I am about their offense, just because, like, we know that this is not the God mode Chiefs offense because Isaiah Pacheco is down. Now he's coming back. It seems like for Friday's game, which we'll get to in in another couple of segments. But I just think that the Chiefs better look really good against the Raiders. Like they are missing that dominant performance. Like it's been one or the other. It's never been the complete team effort. So but I leave this game way more concerned about their defense than I do their offense. And obviously they don't have their kicker right now. So there's a lot going on with the Chiefs as well. Seems like playing in the Super Bowl the last few years is catching up to them as well. But we'll see. But moving right along to the other half of the best game that's happening this week, the Baltimore Ravens whooped the LA Chargers. The Harbaugh Bowl, I think, was really good, but I just think that the Chargers they do what the Chargers do. They had a really good first half, and then the Ravens just dominated. They bullied them essentially in their building. This game was close. The Ravens kind of again played with their food too. They didn't have Roquan Smith, so obviously the Chargers did what any team should do when you're missing one of the best middle linebackers in the league. You attack them over the middle, you run, and that's what they did. And they kept the game pretty close. It was a 1-point game at halftime. I think Morgan will agree with me. I think that 14-13 score was a little deceiving because, again, I think the Ravens were playing around with them. But then they put their foot on their necks. Lamar came and played. The offense looked a lot better. It didn't look as shaky as it did in the first half. They balanced. They ran Derrick Henry a little bit more. Lamar found a few touchdowns to Bateman, and I think Zay Flowers. I don't know if he got a touchdown or not, but I know he had a really good game. But I think the Ravens, again, this often happens with really good teams. They play with their food. They almost get beat, and then they put the hurting on them in the second half. Seems to happen a lot more in the NFL than anywhere else. But I just think the Ravens are the better team. They showed up. They dominated this game when they needed to. But the same thing with the Chiefs. I'm waiting for a complete. Having said all this and hyping this Eagles-Ravens game up that's coming, I hope that this game is not this Sunday where they make the Eagles look like they're a JV team. I don't think this will happen, but I'm just waiting for the Ravens to have that complete game where you look at this team and you say, like I said, oh, they're the second best team in the AFC. They can definitely beat the Chiefs. But I haven't seen that since they played the Chiefs earlier in the season. So, but I think the Chargers are coming, especially under Harbaugh. He's got Herbert looking like he could actually be a franchise quarterback and actually has a coach that believes in him, which is crazy because any of y'all that watch this show know I said that I think Herbert is out of there when his contract's up. But I don't know. I think Harbaugh can get something out of him. I'm not saying they'll make a Super Bowl, but I think Harbaugh can get something out of him. Harbaugh and Roman can get something out of him. I just think that they're missing a couple of pieces in LA. But I think the Ravens and the Eagles, that is a Super Bowl preview. And so I think the Ravens and the Eagles will have the best game of this upcoming weekend slate, but we'll get to that. But I'm gonna let Morgan go and talk about her thoughts with this game.
Yeah, I thought this game was going to be closer. I really did. The Chargers kind of tried to sneak in there and make it close. They had a couple points, but the Ravens just were too dominant. You know, I don't know what the Chargers are missing. It seems like it's kind of been like that the last couple of years or so, where I can't exactly put my finger on it, but they just are missing something. And I don't know. I don't know. I'm like trying to figure out exactly what it could be.
A heavy
Um
hitter. It's a heavy hitter. I mean,
yeah, I mean that could be it. They I mean, you
we're
know,
used
they
to it.
do they
Go
do
ahead.
have, good, Herbert's amazing, and I think he is a game changer, but again, we've talked about this with Josh Allen before. You can't only have one game changer on your team.
Yeah. I think I think I can put. We both grew up around the same time, but I think I can put it very simply. They're missing heavy hitters, man. Like the Chargers of old, like had Antonio Gates, had LaDainian Tomlinson, had Eckler. Towards the end and the early parts of that season, had Darren Sproles. Like they had those. The one thing you can always count on with the Chargers is that offense was going to be deadly. You had a lot of questions on defense, but you never questioned that offense. And this is the one time where like you question everything else. Like you're clearly building something, but they don't have those heavy. Like Justin Herbert is the heaviest hitter they got, and that's a problem. They don't have an Antonio Gates. They don't have a LaDainian Tomlinson yet on that team, and I think that's what they're missing. Those heavy hitters, those foundational pieces that, if nothing else, can definitely guarantee that you get to the playoffs.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. But you got any more thoughts on this game? I kind of stole your thunder
No.
there. No. All right, so moving right along, we kind of touched on this on the NFC, but who is or are the best team or teams in the NFC and the AFC? I can start here.
Yeah.
In no particular order. I think it's the Eagles, it's the Lions, it's the Vikings, and I put the Packers as the fourth team in the NFC. As far as the AFC, I think it's the Chiefs, Ravens, and Bills, and then I think it's everybody else. But I think it's way more loaded in the NFC than in the AFC because I think that none of us counted on the NFC North making an argument for it being the best conference in the NFC this year. I think we thought it would be the NFC West or the NFC East, but it's the NFC North this year. I think that the NFC is just that. I think that this is the one year where I would be shocked if the NFC doesn't raise that Lombardi Trophy at the end of the year because I think that this is like the top offenses and the top defenses for the most part, except for the Ravens, reside in the NFC. Like the Eagles have a top offense and a top defense. The Lions obviously have a top offense, top defense. Now they come back down to earth instead of scoring 60 points for the last couple of games. They only scored like 30, so they've come down a little bit. But I just think that the NFC is really loaded this year. As far as the AFC, I just think that the AFC is basically going to be a slog, and you won't know anything about the AFC until you get to the playoffs, and we'll see after that. But those are my top teams in both conferences. Morgan.
Yeah, I mean, I think on the NFC or the AFC side, for me, it's the Chiefs and the Bills. I would love to see that as a NFC champ or AFC championship. We've talked about it a little bit at NBC where we say that the tides are turning just a little bit. Having the Chiefs lose to the Bills, I think that if that is a championship, they'll come back with a big old vengeance. That's all I can say. So I think those two teams are the best in the AFC. I really just think that they're a tier above everybody else. And the NBC and the NFC, I kind of already talked about it. The Lions and the Eagles for me, how much, and the Eagles must be good for me to admit that I think that they're one of the top two teams. So those are my top four. Those are who, if I could pick my perfect NFC and AFC championship, that would be it. And then a Lions Bills Super Bowl would, I think, be beautiful. I don't want to take that away from you, but that's who I would want in the Super Bowl.
It's not gonna. The Bill. It's not gonna happen for the Bill.
Hey, they've got to win one sometime,
Well, look, man. I would love to see Bills Mafia's face. Nothing makes me happier than seeing a New York team, even if it's Buffalo, losing a championship. So I'm all for it. So
Yeah.
I'm all for it. But moving right along to the Thanksgiving and Black Friday slate, it's time for our game previews. I will pull it up. But Morgan, I'm gonna let you start here while I pull up this slate.
Yeah, so we have 3 games tomorrow. Enjoy them. Thanksgiving football is just the absolute best. I really love standalone games. I think they're really nice. You can just sit there and watch them no matter where you are, no matter who is doing them. They always seem to just have goodness. I don't know how else to describe. That's not like a good word. That's just like something wholesome. You get the whoever wins gets to eat the turkey. It's just fun. So the game that no one should watch is the Cowboys Giants game. I mean, that is just, there is literally not a thing good about that game, especially now that Daniel Jones signed with the Vikings. There's no storylines. They both suck.
Why are you clapping on it? I mean, don't you want to see the lock revenge game? Like, don't you want to see
I don't
lock
care.
up
I don't
the
care. I
Cowboys?
want them to lose. I want them to lose. They deserve to lose. They suck at everything. So, but that's just
so
yeah.
Cowboys,
I'm a little pessimistic. I'm done with sports. I think all my teams are losing, and I hate everything. And Ovechkin is out for 4 to 6 weeks. So my teams were all looking good. I'm a different sports Morgan than I was last week. Anyway, the other games we have are Bears Lions, which should be fine, I guess. I can't ever tell. The Bears are one of those teams where like I generally I'm like, are they good? I can't figure them out.
I think this Bears Lions game has the tendency to be the best of the early game slate, and I'm not just saying that because I'm looking forward to seeing Shibusi perform. But I'm of the mindset that the Bears are a really good team. Like they almost gave whichever team they played last week a scare in the overtime, by the way. So like I think the Lions should win this game. This is the one Thanksgiving game where I'm going to say that the Lions should win pretty. It's a rivalry game, so you can never say that. But the Lions should win this game pretty handily. But I think that they win this game because the Bears have been a really good second half team these last few weeks. So I think this game, I think it's 30-27. I think the Lions sweat it out a little bit, but I think they win 30-27 here just because they're the more talented team. Giants Cowboys, I think you done crapped all over it, but I can't give the Cowboys no credit. I think they win by accident. So I think the Giants win this game because somebody has to win this game, or it could end in a tie, which would be so much better for my.
Better. It would be so much fun if that game ended in a tie. I'd love it.
But I think the Giants win this game. I think somebody has to win, and I think they win 20-14. I don't know how they score 20 points, but they score 20 points. I think the
Giants score 20 points.
Yeah. I can't give it to the Cowboys, Morgan. I just can't. So
yeah, but it should be like 14-12 or something, like something terrible, like
17.
That's
14.
my score. My score is literally 14-12. The Cowboys score like 4 field goals. Like it's just going to be a disaster. The game.
Okay, so 17.
And the Giants have 4 field goals and a safety or something like that. Like that's.
Okay. All right, I agree. Dolphins Packers. I think this is the best game of this slate.
Yes, again, for sure. And I'm not saying that just because it's the NBC game.
Yeah, I think the Packers. I think this is a game where I could see it going either way, but I think the Packers have a little bit more talent than the Dolphins, and they have the better defense.
Yeah.
If you're asking me to put a score on it, I think this is a shootout. I think 30-25 Packers. And then we'll get to the game that we all really, really want to talk about, or y'all have heard me talk about it. But I'm gonna let Morgan. Morgan, I don't know if you have anything to add on that Dolphins game or not.
No.
Okay. I know you don't really like to talk about the Dolphins, so moving right along.
I have nothing to say about them. I just get anxious every single time Tua steps on the field. So
yeah, we all do.
Yeah, Kylan, you go. What do you got to say about this game?
I mean, I think
I'm going to be able to stop them.
I think I've already said it. This is going to be the best game I think of the slate this week.
I
Um,
agree.
I think the Eagles. I think this is going to be. I think this is going to be very, very reminiscent of the and with all due respect to the number one defense in the league, which is the Eagles right now. But I think that the Eagles and Ravens. I'm going to say this is going to be a shootout. I think
Okay.
that the Eagles will win, just because I think they have a little bit more talent on both sides of the ball, and it's crazy that in all phases of the game than the Ravens. I think that they're the hotter team, and they should win this game. And I think this will be. You ready for this? I think this is going to be a game that ends 40-35. I think the Eagles
40
probably.
to 35. Oh my God.
I think this is a shootout through and through. I think that I'm waiting to see if Roquan will play. Obviously, Kyle Hamilton will play, but I think this is going to be a shootout.
Okay.
I said the same thing about the Bengals game, and that wound up
Yeah.
being a shootout too. I think it'll end up being a shootout. I don't know if my score might be a little high. It might end up
And you
being
you
like.
have the Eagles winning this, yes?
Yeah, I think the Eagles win. I think the only credit I can give the Ravens over the Eagles is that the only two things I can give them is, and this is no disrespect to Nick because I think he's a great coach, but I got to give it to the Super Bowl winner. I think the Ravens have a coaching advantage and they obviously have a QB advantage. Even though I think Jalen Hurts is a superstar quarterback, he's a top five quarterback in the league. I can't fix my lips to say he's better than Lamar
Yeah.
yet. So like
Of course.
I
Yeah,
yeah, I have to say I have to be objective here and say that obviously the coaching and the QB advantage is with the Ravens, but I just think that momentum is a big thing in football, and I think the Eagles are just that team, and I think that if you ask me which team do I believe will make less mistakes between these two teams, I think it'll be the Eagles, but I
Okay.
think a factor here will be who can stop the hotter running back, and I think the Eagles are a little bit more equipped to stop the Derrick Henry
Okay.
than any
I
other
would
team
say
in the
that.
Ravens
I would say
history.
that's probably true. The Eagles defense has been killer these last
Yeah,
few weeks. So,
yeah. So that's where I'm at with it. So I think 40-35 Eagles. I think it's a shootout. I think Ravens and Eagles fans will be sweating throughout the game, but I think the
oh
Eagles.
yeah. I think it's going
will-
to be an awesome game. It's going to
Yeah,
be so much fun. Um, both these teams are offensively and defensively like super strong, which makes these kind of games really fun to watch because it is. I agree with you. It's going to be a shootout. I'm not saying it's going to be as high as 40 whatever your craziness was just there, but I think it's going to be like 31-28, like something kind of like that. Like I do think it's going to be high, but 40 is wild. But I love
hey
it. You have
man,
faith in your
whatever,
team.
whatever
There's
the
nothing wrong with that.
whatever the money line, because we got some degenerate sports bettors that watch us. So whatever the money line is, take it. Whatever the over is, take it.
That's true. That is
Like
probably true.
don't bet the like if you're one of those people you like to bet the unders when it comes to Super Bowl previews. Again, I don't bet games, but if you're one of those people you like to bet the unders when two teams from and again, the thing that the one thing I'll say about this is Lamar usually doesn't lose to NFC teams. Now, obviously, this is a different NFC team than any other teams. The Eagles really have a really complete team, and I think that, like I said, I had this marked as a loss before the season started, but I think the Eagles could pull it out. I think Vegas is underrepresenting the Eagles. I think 2.5 is too low. I think it should be 1.5 because I just think that the Eagles are the hottest team in the NFL and they should get that respect. I think it should be the Eagles by 2.5 or 3. And again, not a sports better. I know a lot of y'all are. The knowledge that I have, a lot of people be like, Colin, you be and Morgan will say, I be right on it with these scores. I don't know if it'll be 40-35, but I think it'll be close to that. But yeah, I think this will be the best game, and I think this is very much a Super Bowl preview. Um, but yeah, moving right along, and why this thing is still up here. Most intriguing matchups of Week 13. I think we just talked about this. Um, but I know we say Eagles Ravens, but Morgan, do you have anything else that you want to highlight on this schedule?
No.
Between Black
mean,
Friday and Thanksgiving before we get to Monday or during
I'm
Sunday?
intrigued by the Bills 49ers game just to see if the 49ers, I think this game will be really telling. I think that if they look like trash, I think that the season's probably over for them. But I'm intrigued to see how that team looks. But that's like about it. Nothing else is jumping out to me to be like, whoa, this is an unbelievable game. I have to sit down and watch it. So
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if this game will be unbelievable, but I'm interested to see what the Steelers and Bengals both look like
yeah,
coming off of losses. Um, um,
completely agree.
I think this 49ers Bills game, I think this is one week where NBC has won the slate between NBC being a better
Yeah,
game than MNF. I think MNF is going to be a struggle this week with the Browns and the Broncos. That's two teams that you don't want to see in prime time. But yeah, I think that's it. I'm looking at this slate: Steelers, Bengals, Seahawks, Jets, and which team is going to get rid of their quarterback first? Seahawks, Jets. Yeah, I think that's it. I think we're
I mean,
good.
I don't think that
I
I don't
think
think the
we're good
Jets are going to
on
get
this
rid of their
end with that.
quarterback.
As far as what we're doing.
I don't think the Jets are going to get rid of their quarterback, but I mean, I would, but
Oh,
it's
well, something happened to
unfortunately.
Morgan or something happened to me. But moving
Oh, can
right
you not hear me?
along.
Can you not hear me?
Something might happen.
So it looks like Kylan may have dropped out, but we are going to keep chugging along because that is what we do, right? So we just kind of finished up talking about all the things NFL. We are going to kind of switch it over back to college football. The Indiana JMU Hoosier Dukes unfortunately lost the Ohio Buckeyes. I think we kind of both saw this coming. Indiana's a great team. Kirk Sneddie is a great coach. But I think that, they still have a little bit of time before they're going to beat Ohio State. Ohio State is just one of those teams where they're just hard to beat. You know, it's one of those things that's it's tough. I was rooting for Indiana. It was a big game. For anybody that loves Kirk Cignetti and most of the players that are on his team that were JMU Dukes last year. But not every team is meant to beat every team. I still don't think that they're completely knocked out of the college football playoffs. And I think the reason they are not completely knocked out of the college football playoffs is because the SEC has just fallen apart. And not even falling apart in they're beating each other, which is fine and normal, but their wins and losses are all over the place. And how do you give, Alabama losing this weekend? How do you give a spot in the 12-team playoff to an Alabama versus a Indiana that the only team they lost to is the Ohio State Buckeyes? Now, I still think that the three teams that are really up for it are Oregon, Georgia, and Ohio State. I really think it's still going to come down to those three teams for the actual natty. But it's interesting, right? It's interesting to look at not the downfall of the SEC, but just the parity of it this year. And you wonder if the parity comes from the NIL, right? Because all of these teams have so much money. Is that kind of the reason why they are able to do what they're doing, and why some of these teams that haven't beat teams like Alabama in years are able to beat them? And it's I think that's the biggest thing. And I think that you look at some of these teams that are in lower conferences and you can't not put them in and put teams in the SEC in that have lost 2 or 3 games. It's just, it doesn't look good. It won't look good. And I think you'll have a whole lot of people that are really mad if you do that.
Yeah. Hey, I'm back.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. You were like, "Oh, I guess I can't hear Morgan." And I was like, "Oh no." And then you were gone. So we got through a few of the topics. So if we want to maybe just start with the unless you have anything you really want to say on this.
Yeah, I just want to say that I think that I said this off air, so I'll say it on air. Morgan got into it last week what I feel about the different things that she was upset about with the broadcasting side. So I'll get into it today. I think there's a lot of people who need to take their SEC hoodies off, especially whether they went to an SEC school or not. A lot of people in our industry, they're very biased towards the SEC when it comes to playoffs. And now that this is a 12-team playoff, they're very biased towards the SEC. The SEC is not good this year. Like outside of Georgia, and even they struggled. They struggled last weekend, right? Like outside of Georgia, there's no good SEC team. Like Oklahoma just upset Bama. Tennessee isn't who they thought they were. Like the SEC is not good this year. We said this last year with the NBC money coming in. The Big Ten is the football conference now. It's the Big Ten. Like they've got Oregon is the number one team. Ohio State is coming, but I still think Ohio State isn't really that good, despite the fact that they beat JMU North. Um, I am of the mindset that it's the Big Ten. It's the Big Ten. It's the Big 12 is there, but it's the Big Ten. Like I would not be shocked if it comes down to Oregon versus Penn State or Oregon versus Ohio State, and that's a championship game because the Big Ten has just been that good. There's an argument that that at least 4 to 5 Big Ten teams should make it. Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon, Indiana, I think still should make it because if your one loss is against Ohio State and like obviously it looked bad for Indiana, but I mean I still think that if they have a better record than everybody else, if what we're all saying is the record matters, then Indiana should be in, and then you can fill out the field with whichever bum SEC team you want to put in there outside of Georgia. You want to make it Texas with Arch Manning leading it. You want Arch Manning to look like a bum against the Big Ten defense, whatever. Like I just think I think that is that. I think there'll be at least one ACC school in there. I think it'll probably end up being Miami, even though I think they lose to Syracuse this week. And I'm not just, I mean, I am saying that because I'm a Syracuse homer and an alum, but I just also think that Miami is good this year. But I think they'll lose to the Syracuse team that is coming. But I just think it's the Big Ten and everybody else. I think the SEC is not the dominant football conference. To me, they've never been the dominant football conference, even when they were winning. But I just think they're not them anymore. And going back a little bit to this, Hoosiers fall to the Ohio State Buckeyes. I think the Buckeyes listen to this podcast and take it personally because every time they blow a team out, I have said that they're not them, and I just think that Ohio State they were able to dominate a Hoosiers team that I think wasn't ready for that type of bullying. And so I think that Ohio State is good, but I don't think that they're better than Oregon. But I think that they're the number 2 team in the country for a reason. So you have to give that some respect. So yeah, so moving right along. Colorado falls to Kansas. I mean, Morgan talked about looking ahead when it comes to the Chiefs. I definitely think Colorado was looking past Kansas, and I don't think they were taking them seriously, despite the fact that they have beaten 2, now 3 ranked teams. Like anybody that comes into Kansas and you're ranked, if you're facing Kansas on your schedule this week and you're ranked, you're probably going to lose because Kansas is nothing but a bunch of, like Morgan talked about, 4-year and 5th-year seniors and grad students. They've been together. Kansas was good last year. They've fallen off this year, but they're really good. And Devin Neal dominated that game, 4 touchdowns. You don't really see a 4 touchdown performance. And I've said this about Colorado, like they're not really equipped to beat a really good or experienced team, and they showed that. So I think that Colorado will still get into a big time bowl game. I think they probably lose a big time bowl game if they have to face a team that is either comparable or just as good as them. But I think that Colorado, their record says they're good. The talent of Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders says they're good. But I just think they met a team that was more experienced and more talented than them against Kansas. Morgan, I didn't even give you a chance to talk about the Hoosiers game. I don't know if you've had anything to add on both these games or not.
No.
Okay. So moving to what I know Morgan wants to talk about. most interesting matchups in college football this weekend. Um, Obviously, I can start here. Miami, Syracuse. I think it will be a great matchup. I think that's going to be a knockabout, drag 'em out fight. I think that Syracuse, if they don't take their foot off the gas, they will win. They will be able to pull off that upset. And what I know last week's game against UConn, because that was the game that they were more likely to win of the last two, was senior night. But what is essentially senior night? The real, obviously they had the official one, but the unofficial senior night, or at 3:30 in prime time. I think that's the most intriguing matchup this week. Miami, Syracuse. Morgan.
Um, I mean, Auburn, Alabama is always a good game. We'll see what Alabama does. Do they drop 2 in a row? I mean, that would be an interesting stat to look at, the last time that Alabama dropped 2 games in a row. I can't imagine it was recent,
Yeah,
to be honest with you.
it
And then the
definitely
other
it
game,
definitely, it definitely was way before the Saban years.
yeah, for sure. So, you know, people in Alabama don't take to losing in football very kindly. And that is probably
Mhm.
the nicest way I could ever say that. Um, so, you know, we'll see. But I am I would be interested to see that game. I would honestly be interested to be a fly on the wall in their locker rooms this week to kind of see what they're saying. And then the other game that I'm in, Michigan, Ohio State is always a good game. I know Michigan has kind of been a nothing burger this year, but let's see if Ohio State can get that win over Michigan for the first time in, you know, quite some time, I guess. And then the South Carolina Clemson game, Battle of South Carolina, is always really a fun game.
Yeah, yeah, that's a fun game. Yeah, I think Arizona State, Arizona will surprise people, even though I don't think Arizona will have anything for Arizona State. But you never know when it comes to state rivalry games. But moving right along to unless Morgan has anything else.
No.
Moving right along to the basketball part of this discussion. Um, we'll stop sharing. Okay, cool. So Philadelphia 76ers had an up and down weekend. Beat the Brooklyn Nets. Made my rant made me feel like they really listened to my rant last week. They came together. The talent of Jared McCain and Tyrese Maxey. He must have listened to this podcast, because I was telling him you can't be telling Embiid that he's tardy and that affects the team, and then you pressing coming back from a hamstring injury. So he clearly listened to this podcast. So they won that game and then lost against the Clippers on Sunday. Got destroyed by the Clippers for real, without Joel Embiid and Paul George. No Joel Embiid and Paul George tonight against the Rockets team that I think that they should. It'll be a close game, but I think they should win. They have more talent than the Rockets, even without Joel Embiid and Paul George. I just think the Sixers, like I said, I know that there's a lot of Sixers fans. They don't agree with me. They think I'm being a homer. They think I'm too optimistic about Joel Embiid. I know that Morgan probably shares some of the same things, but I give y'all the truth about our hometown Sixers, like with analytics and stuff. Like, I think the Sixers will come together. I think that they have at least 2 to 3 wins in them this week. I think that Paul George says he'll be back by next week, so I think he'll come back. He'll look good. Joel Embiid will probably be incoming too at the end of next week as well. I just think the Sixers are not healthy right now. And I just think that once they get healthy, they'll be better. I think that they're going to really kick it in December. They have to, because they have to make that Sixers Celtics game watchable. So they have to look better. They can't look any worse. But I'm of the mindset that my reaction to this is they're coming together. They just need to stay the course. And like I said, you rather deal with controversy. Like the last few years, the Sixers have dealt with controversy early and late. You'd rather deal with it early than late.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what can the Sixers do to save their season? Get a power forward who can rebound and shoot. A young power forward. I love Guerschon Yabusele. I think he's good, but I don't know if he's a starting power forward in the NBA right now. I think he can. I think he can be. I really like him as a contributor and an X factor. And I think if he continues to play like he is, then I won't have a question about who the who the 4 is in Philly, but I think they need to trade and find somebody, whether that's Dorian Finney-Smith, whether that's Patrick Williams. They need a young power forward in here that's going to be able to grow with Tyrese Maxey, Jared McCain, Joel Embiid, and Paul George. And obviously, the first year of a trio, if you ever paid attention to basketball in your life, the first year of a trio coming together is always the toughest. It was the same for Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving when they came together in Brooklyn. It's the same in Phoenix. Now, Phoenix is looking great now that Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, and Kevin Durant have learned how to play with each other. So if you're a Sixers fan and you're trying to blow it up, I don't care how bad Joel Embiid's knee is. Him at 50, 60% will still get the Sixers at least 50-plus wins. No matter how bad it looks, it'll still get 50-plus wins because even last year they won 50 games, and Joel Embiid missed a good majority of the season. So they always win at least 50 games when Joel Embiid plays. He hasn't not won the Sixers. Like they've had the last 4 years, they've won 50-plus games. So y'all don't need to worry about it there. But they need to get healthy, and they need to get a power forward in there, and that's what I think will save their season. And they need to come together. No more leaking team meetings. No more drama. Get it out the way. Get it out your system. Like Joel Embiid, rumors are flying that he's going to try and find the stitch. Don't even worry about it, Joel. You don't need to go Godfather. Just focus on ball. Focus on getting to the Eastern Conference Finals. Focus on the Christmas Day game with Boston next month. Just focus on that, and everything else will fall into place.
Yeah.
So to what I know Morgan wants to talk about. I mean, UConn and South Carolina, man, these defending champions. South Carolina falls to UCLA, and Notre Dame beats USC. This is about women's college basketball, so I'll let Morgan go first. I mean, Morgan, did you see this coming this weekend? Down goes Frazier on both sides. Like
no, not for either of these teams. But the only way to think about it is that it's a blessing in disguise for both of these teams, right? Like you got to take the losses sometimes, and losses suck for sure, but you got to take them, and you got to be like, okay, this is what's happening. What do we need to do? And go back and reevaluate. I don't know what's going on with UConn.
We'll get to that. That's the next topic. We'll get to that.
I know. South Carolina, I think it's the same thing. And I think it's one of those other things that we say that sometimes you start to feel a little bit invincible. And, when you feel invincible, sometimes bad things happen.
Yeah, I think South Carolina has a lot of issues. Obviously, they have, this player is out, but they have some domestic violence stuff going on there. But I think South Carolina will be able to do better. I'm not saying that's why they lost. Obviously, UCLA was the better team. They hit more shots. They were able to force South Carolina to not rely on the paint as much as they do, and the 3-pointers just didn't fall here. Same thing with USC. Notre Dame was able to out-talent and out-tough them. With USC, but I just think that both of these teams, I think that's two halves of the Final Four, South Carolina and USC. I think UCLA is coming, Notre Dame is coming. I mean, when you have Hannah Hidalgo and everything that they have going for them at Notre Dame, I think that you can win a lot of games, and they were able to out talent. I think that they are the more together. Both of these teams that beat South Carolina and USC are the more together team, and what I mean by that is they play together more. They're more experienced. Like I think UCLA had a lot of seniors and juniors last year, and now they have a lot more experienced team that I think fell to South Carolina last year anyway in the tournament as well. I believe, right, Morgan? That so this is kind of a revenge game for UCLA here. So I think UCLA is coming. I think Notre Dame is coming, but I think that both of these teams, as far as South Carolina, come back, get together, figure it out. This is when, as Morgan said, you get that controversy early. The same thing happened to South Carolina last year, and then they didn't lose another game ever, and they won another title. So, I think Dawn Staley will have something for them. As far as USC, I don't know if their coach is. I know she's good, but I don't know if she's able to coach through controversy. But we'll find out. But I still think South Carolina and USC will both end up in the Final Four this upcoming tournament. But we'll see otherwise. now to what Morgan actually wants to talk about. She wants to defend UConn. So before I let
No,
her talk,
I don't want to defend them. I don't know what's going on. It was it's like they forgot how to play defense. They were getting stupid technicals. Now, the refs in that first game were not good on either side. There was just too many people fouling out, too many fouls called, bad fouls being called, and then you cannot give Dan Hurley a tech where you gave him a tech after he's been acting like that all game, and then the one play that he's correct about that should not have been a foul called, they give him a tech on. It's just too much. I understand people that aren't fans of him or whatever are like, well, you shouldn't be talking like that, blah, blah, blah. But you can't let him get away with that all game. And then on one play where he's right to be angry and the game is on the line, you give the other team 4 shots in the ball. It's just not fair. I don't think anybody likes seeing games, especially a game that was as good as that, as back and forth as that, decided by the refs. But UConn put themselves in that situation. UConn put themselves in the situation to be down 13 with 3 minutes left. I don't think that anybody thought they'd be playing for the 7th place, to not finish dead last in this tournament. But that's honestly, I think just kind of what's happening with them. And I think they need to get back from Hawaii and regroup and, figure it out. Because I don't know what's going on. Memphis is a good team, though. Memphis is sneaky. And the other thing is, when you have a team that's shooting like that, they're shooting threes from the logo, contested threes from the logo, and making every one of them. At some point, you got to give it to Memphis that they were the better team.
Yeah,
I didn't get to watch much of the Colorado game, to be honest with you.
I mean, I'm of the mindset that in both of these games, I didn't watch the UConn Colorado game or even the UConn Memphis game. I actually heard about it from Facebook. But I kind of figured that when I saw the video, I was like, "Oh, Dan Hurley is being really passionate," and I'm sure them refs love that, so they gave him a tech. But I think UConn, again, kind of like South Carolina, is suffering from like a team that is more together. Obviously, there's a lot of turnover at UConn this year with all of those seniors graduating and juniors and sophomores ditching them for the NBA, which is their right. I'm not begrudging that. But I think that UConn has to learn how to win in this different, where every season is different. So UConn has to learn how to win. They're not invincible.
No, they're not.
And I think this was a good reality check for them to lose.
I agree. I said the same thing. I said the exact same thing. I said, you know what? I wish that they had won, but I'm also not terribly, I'd rather them lose this little silly Maui tournament than lose first round of the NCAA tournament,
Yeah, so I think that the both of those teams, Memphis and Colorado, again, more experience. They've won together. Penny Hardaway is no slouch. Colorado was good last year. So
Yeah.
I'm of the mindset that UConn just lost to teams that were built to beat them. So will that happen again? Probably not. I mean, I don't know how many more impressive teams UConn plays before they get into conference play. But I mean, we said this a few weeks ago when this started. You're going to see a lot of weird losses happening because these teams that are contenders aren't playing at their best yet, and there's enough time in college basketball to like come together where there isn't in college football. So this is one of those things where I say basketball is better than football because it gives you time if you're a contending team to like come together, whereas football doesn't really give you that time.
Exactly. I completely agree with you.
Yeah, so moving right along to our shout out seg. So first and foremost, I want to shout out, especially after killing him last week. I can never knock the charity of these players. So shout out Tyrese Maxey, Kelly Oubre, Saquon Barkley, and all the other Philadelphia athletes, including Jalen Hurts, who have been doing the former three. Tyrese Maxey did a turkey giveaway this weekend in North Philly. Kelly Oubre did a little dinner thing for the less fortunate in Camden yesterday. Saquon Barkley had a whole turkey drive, I think, on Monday, Tuesday. So yeah, and then Jalen Hurts, for those of you that don't know, anytime he scores a touchdown, he donates $100,000 to Philly schools because there are some schools here that don't have air conditioning, so he's helping them with that. So it's good to have athletes that care. Joel Embiid, he'll be doing his coat giveaway soon as well. So I'm of the mindset that it's good to have athletes that care. Keep it to sports, but these athletes are people, and it's good to have athletes that care.
Yeah.
So shouts out to them. Morgan.
Um, just I want to just shout out to everybody that is, cooking and hosting this weekend. I know it's not the easiest thing to do sometimes, hosting that much family and friends, and or just cooking for yourself or a small group. Everybody that's hosting Thanksgiving, shout out to them. I don't really have any other big names to shout out for
Oh,
this
hold on.
week.
Oh, along with that, shout out to, even though Morgan and I think we're millennials, we're participating online, but shout out to all the people who will be dealing with those rude customers. I've never worked retail in my life. Don't know if Morgan did, but shout out to
Yeah.
all those people who will only get Thursday off and then have to deal with a lot of rude people who are only there for the deals during this Black Friday weekend, Small Business Saturday. Don't know if Sunday's just Sunday, I guess, and then Cyber Monday. Shouts out to all the people who stock the shelves, who cash people out, cashiers and stuff. Shouts out to all of y'all who will only be getting off today and tomorrow and then have to deal with all these people who post pandemic act like they don't know how to treat people, don't know the golden rule. Like, so shouts out to all our retail workers who have to deal with all the rude people who are coming from various places, will be in various big cities, various suburbs, various rural areas, and you have to see them and they're only there for the deal. So, you know, the good thing is at least y'all get Thanksgiving off. At least you got that.
It's true. That
Yeah,
is true.
yeah. So moving right along, and hopefully and prayerfully, we will all have a safe Black Friday, and none of us will have to hear. Our news colleagues won't have to cover any trampolines because we know that happens when people are lining up. It shouldn't happen anymore, but people line up. I don't know. I feel like this is a good question. How early, before we move on, how early have you lined up for Black Friday before you did online stuff?
I've gone when I was younger. I've gone to the mall at like 6:37 in the morning. Nothing crazy. I've never been one to like go all the way out. How about you?
Yeah, I think same with my family and stuff. We would go at like 7, 8, something in there when I was younger. I'm not really crazy. You've heard me say this when we've seen each other in person. I'm not really a fan of camping out for anything. So
Yeah, no, I
So, yeah, yeah. So I'm right there with you. But yeah, speaking of that, that's a good question. So hit us up on our Twitters and stuff with and social media with the earliest, whether you've been a kid or you're one of those extreme
yes.
people, the earliest you've gone out for Black Friday or Thanksgiving night shopping, even though Thanksgiving night doesn't really happen anymore. But moving right along to he's not him, she's not her, and they aren't them. Morgan, you want to go first or should I?
I don't really have anything this week. I've been thinking about it and I'm kind of like I don't I don't really have anything,
Okay.
I no one's really pissed me off that much,
Okay.
honestly. Maybe the ref that called the over the back at on UConn would be my he's not him, but um nothing crazy. People are being
No,
good, I guess.
it is the. I mean, Kim Mulkey hasn't pissed me off yet, but I'm sure she.
Right?
I'm sure she's working on it. So, moving right. So my he's not him. Just because we haven't gotten to it yet, and I need to get to it before he takes a job in the next administration when he retires later, if he retires later. But Aaron Rodgers, my he's not him. We're hearing rumors now. Pat McAfee is dropping clues. Adam Schefter reported on it that now that he doesn't have any human shields anymore, now that Robert Saleh, Joe Douglas, and all of them are gone, Woody Johnson is looking at him and saying, it's time to go, brother. Like he wants to bench him. He's refusing to get X-rayed. Like, he'd be perfect in the HHS of this future incoming administration. But I'm of the mindset that Aaron Rodgers is my he's not him. And I just think because we haven't gotten to talk about it yet because there's been a lot more stuff that's trumped it. But since we're probably not going to talk about it, and by the time we do, it'll probably be something else with him. Why he's not him is Aaron Rodgers, because I don't know why you're not taking the blame. Why you running from the grind, man? You got the coach fired. You saved Hackett. Like, you have to bear some blame here. Like, Woody Johnson is not spending his money to give you all that money to watch you, like, make his baby into a dumpster fire, even more of a dumpster fire than they already are. So that's why he's not him. Aaron Rodgers and my they aren't them. It's still got to be ESPN. I don't know if you saw this, Morgan, but clearly I think somebody asked the president or the person that is over College Game Day, essentially why they haven't sat Lee Corso down yet. And he said that that's a conversation that they have with Lee Corso. I guess he's had more senior moments. Those that watch the show know I don't really watch College Game Day, just because I
don't really either.
Think there's some weird stuff going on with that, but I do like Lee Corso. I think he's great, but I think it's time to sit him down. I am of the mindset that my they aren't them is ESPN, because it's time to sit your 90-year-old down. You're doing it with Hubie Brown. There's a shout out for you. Shout out to Hubie Brown for still doing it at 90 plus years old. But I'm of the mindset that if you're sitting Hubie Brown down, it's time to sit Lee Corso. And I think Hubie Brown decided himself that it's time to sit down. But Lee Corso can't decide himself that it's time to sit down. ESPN has to do their due diligence and sit him down. It's time. Time to get a younger face in there. As Morgan pointed out, not an athlete, not a former coach. Get a reporter, get somebody else in there. It's time to get younger with College Game Day. It's a little too old for it to be a college show. I'm of the mindset that I think College Game Day, the basketball side does it right. You have a nice little mix of young and old. It's time to get younger. So my they aren't them to the ESPN. I think it was president, vice president that talked about, it's up to Lee Corso if they sit him down. No, it's up to you. He's 90. He's going to keep going. If his health says he can keep going, it's time to sit him down. And like I said, shout out to Hubie Brown. Love your commentary. One of the few, I love the play-by-play, But that's where I'm at with it. So my they aren't them. ESPN, my he's not him. Aaron Rodgers. So yeah, happy Thanksgiving, y'all.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, man. Have a great week, and we will see you guys next week. Morgan, have safe travels to Delaware as well.
You enjoy the holidays with your family.
Good luck on the football. Good luck on the football game call. Tomorrow. Tomorrow. This is Wednesday, so good luck and safe travels.
All right.
Shout out to you and
have
Dan.
A great Thanksgiving, guys.
Yep. Don't forget to follow us too.
Don't follow, like, subscribe, share, do it.
Yep. Let's go. See y'all later. I am really struggling right now. There you go.